Good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show. I hope that you all come in and join me. I hope that we have a very powerful the next hour and a half, 2 hours of a show. And of course, we're on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio. Thank you for the Earl Winfrey and Wanda B for allowing us this platform to be with you every Monday night at 7 o'clock, talking about what matters to you. And certainly coming from this program, we talk about what matters to you. And of course, we certainly want to talk about the facts of what matters. We're going to be talking about a few things tonight. We're also going to be talking about voter engagement, telling you how you can stay engaged, how you can get engaged, and how to make sure that you check your voter registration, to make sure that you are registered to vote, just in case your voter registration is out or inactive, put it that way. And I want to go through that with you because I went to check my voter registration and found out that it was inactive. And so therefore, we have got to make sure that our voter registration is current and that it is actually active. So welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show on this September the 16th of 2024. On September the 15th of 2024, yesterday would have been my mother's 93rd birthday. My mother went home to be with the Lord 2 years ago, 2022. So she would have been 91 if she had lived to see her birthday on that year. But the Lord saw fit that it was time to bring her out of her suffering, out of her pain and misery. She was suffering. She did not have a quality of life, and she has been liberated from all of that. And so she now rests with the angels, and certainly in peace. She, right along with my aunt, her sister, Margaret, both of them were significant, or the most significant staples in my life. And so whatever I am today, whatever good I am today, it is because of the model of those two women who supported me and counseled me, corrected me, disciplined me in my life. And so I try and live my life to be exemplified of their teaching. We're talking about two women of great character, great conscience, and great courage, who did nothing less than serve people, serving humanity. Not only did they serve their family, but they served humanity. My mother was an educator. Her sister was an educator. Both of them worked in the public school sector. My mother worked in early childhood education. My aunt was an executive secretary for Miami-Dade County, and she was also a typing instructor, someone who could type nearly 100 words a minute. She was just awesome, both of them. So certainly big kudos out to those two women. And of course, we lost several other people in this last month, and of course this last week. We lost Louis Gossett Jr. died at 87. We lost him earlier in the month. Tito Jackson passed on yesterday. He was 70 years old. Frankie Beverly passed on September the 10th at 77. James Earl Jones, who was 93 years old, passed on September the 10th. And Rick Homie Kwan, born as DeQuantes Lamar, passed away. He was 34 years of age. And Fat Man Scoop, Isaac Freeman, known as Isaac Freeman, third, passed on August the 30th. And of course, that great actor Bill Cobbs, who was 90 years of age, passed earlier this summer in June. So there were a number of people that we certainly, excuse me, pay tribute to And all of those people, we enjoyed their great talent, their great gifts on the screen and on the stage. And those of you who are big rappers fans, and there were a number of other people who made their transition this year, and that we remember them in memoriam. And of course, they and hopefully their lives will be a blessing. Their memories will be a blessing to their families and to the people who they were close to. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about, and I may be having some guests a little bit later on in the program. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to make it. We may be talking with Devorah Crable, known as Deborah Crable, who used to be the anchor host on the Ebony Jet Showcase with Daryl Denard back in the 80s and the 90s. She is now president and CEO of MSD Global, which is a media marketing and community engagement strategist. And then we're going to be talking with, hopefully, Louistine Walker, who is now the president of the Mayor Harold Washington Legacy Committee, founded by the late, great Josie Childs, who made her transition a year ago. She was 7 years old. And so they're carrying that on. And so we want to talk about and see what they're doing in terms of the legacy, the Harold Washington Legacy Committee, and what their plans are for the future. And of course, if you would like to engage in the conversation, you can call me at 951-221-8221, 951-221-8221. If you certainly want to engage in the program, I'll put the call-in number up, 951-221-8221 is the listener call-in number. So you can call in. We'll be picking up your phone calls a little bit later on in the program that you want to engage in the conversation with us. One of the things that I like to talk about that I don't hear a lot about, and certainly don't hear a lot of conversation about by the candidates, and I'd like to hear more of that, certainly either by them or by their surrogates, talking about poor people. We hear a lot about the middle class, and I understand what that means, talking about the middle class and the middle class, growing the middle class, because if we have a greater middle class, means that we're bringing more people out of poverty. But we need to talk about the plight of poor people. And the reason why I believe that we certainly need to do that, we need to talk about the plight of poor people, is because we need to speak to poor people, understanding that they identify as low wage, low income, or poor people. Look, in places like North Carolina, places like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, which the elections were decided by 75,000 or fewer people. In Pennsylvania, the election was decided by 75,000 people. In North Carolina, I think it was 40,000 or reverse, and 20,000 in Wisconsin. The common denominator between all three of those, there were 1 million, more than 1 million low wage or poor people who did not vote in the last election. And I believe that that is a direct relation or correlation to that the candidates or the campaigns don't speak directly to poor people. They don't talk about their plights. They don't talk about their situations. They don't talk about what they are doing to get more people out of poverty. I think the last person to really talk about getting people out of poverty was Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton didn't talk about getting poor people out of poverty until after he was out of office. He talked about getting poor people out of poverty a great deal when after his his tenure as presidency. So, and as someone who really pays attention and engage and reads and try to understand the political nuances and the dynamics, That's one area that I don't understand. And I think that we need to raise the question. We need to raise the question to candidates. We need to raise the question to journalists who are asking the candidates questions. Why is there not a more robust, intentional conversation around low wage and poor people? Why are we only talking about expanding the middle class? Why are we not talking about bringing people out of poverty, meaning talking to those people? Low income people in this country make up more than 35% of the entire electorate. And many of them don't participate in elections. I know that Reverend William Barber has picked up that campaign many years ago on the Poor People's Campaign, which was actually started by Ralph Abernathy and Dr. King under SELC. And that was their mantra, was the Poor People's Campaign. Really, that Poor People's Campaign was kicked off by Fannie Lou Hamer. Fannie Lou Hamer, who was someone back in 1962, when they went to register to vote. They were stopped, they were arrested, they were beaten, thrown in jail, beaten, simply because they wanted to register and vote. And she ended up being thrown off of the plantation where she had lived for years with her husband, Pap, and her children. And she went on to become a great voice in the Poor People's Campaign. So, but it is one of those areas that I'm a little concerned about. And I question why we are not hearing more from the candidates about poor people and the plight of poor people and what their plans are for moving people out of low income, impoverished conditions into the middle class. Yes. Why is there a reluctance to say the word poor or to dismiss poor people? Why is there a reluctance to do that? It's a question that we should ask. Also, I want to talk about what I see as real democracy, to seeing that there are Republicans who are saying, though I may not agree with your political philosophy, we may disagree on political philosophy in terms of how to solve problems, to advance people in the country, to advance the country. What I do agree with you is that we are American citizens. We have a democracy, and protecting and safeguarding our democracy is the fundamental first and foremost priority of anybody who calls themselves an American, who is an American citizen, who cares about the democracy of America, who cares about the fundamental that we have in order for us to be able to sit down and to have real discourse about solving problems and how to solve problems. But we have to have that fundamental table, which is democracy. The table, which is where the seats are, is democracy. And in order for us to have a seat at the table, we must make sure that the table is protected and that the table, no matter what our political ideologies are, is that we all fundamentally agree that we have to have the table of democracy in order for us to have the opportunity to address the needs and the future and the health and the well-being of the country. That comes before your label whether it is a Democrat or a Republican, if you belong to the Democratic Party or the Republican or the conservatives or the independents, whatever side that your philosophy lies, that we all fundamentally agree. And one of the things that is making me so hopeful and encouraging me, not that I will ever agree with their political ideology or direction, not that I wouldn't agree with some of their political ideology or direction, but the fact that we have people who are real Republicans, authentic Republicans or conservatives, who are saying that though we don't have a candidate that is on the Republican ticket, we have a candidate on the Republican ticket, but that candidate is a threat to the health and well-being of our democracy. And as Republicans, we care about the country first and foremost. We care about the country. We care about our democratic norms. We care about the fundamental of our democracy, that we have worked so hard and so many people have sacrificed for us to have this democracy and to participate in this democracy. And that there are those who are behaving in antithetical ways that could and would destroy what so many have died, bled, and sacrificed for us to be able to have and participate at this point down through 250 plus years, 400 years. What gives me extraordinary hope is to see people saying that I am crossing the political line, but what I am doing is not so much as crossing the political line. What I am doing is saying that our democracy is far more important, and we have to protect that so that we can have the opportunity and the ability to sit down and disagree, or to sit down and to agree, to sit down to negotiate. You can't do any of that if you don't have the fundamental in place. And the fundamental is the democracy. The democracy is that you and I have a vote, you and I have a voice to elect people that we have entrusted power to, that we believe will be the best representatives of the issues that impact our communities. And that those people will go into those democratic agencies, and they will represent the interests that we have empowered them to do, whether it be on a local level, whether it be on a state level, or whether it be on the federal level. And what we see are Republicans who are saying that our democracy is at risk, it is at threat. And I, as an American, if I am going to be true to what I say I am, which is an American, and that I care about the health and well-being of our democracy and this country, then I have to stand to protect it. And I cannot support someone who we know and believe does not understand democratic norms, does not care about democratic norms, that we cannot allow for that person to become the President of the United States again. That gives me a lot of hope that we have it was just announced today that 17 of Ronald Reagan's staffers, when he was president, 17 of them wrote a letter today in support of Kamala Harris for the presidency of the United States. That is not to say that they agree with Kamala Harris's agenda, her political philosophy, her approach to addressing different issues. What they're saying is that they know that the Harris-Walz campaign is the best, and that is the protection of our democratic norms. Saying that we have to protect the democratic norms, and then we at least have to have somebody that we could sit down to the table and have a conversation with, have a reasonable conversation with, and a reasonable discourse about how do we address the issues of the country. How do we do that? And one side is talking and one side is listening, and the other side talks and the other side listens. They both are having the opportunity to do that. Why do they have the opportunity to do that? Because they protected democracy. They protected the fundamental of democracy. Now, I am supporting the Kamala Harris-Walz campaign because I do agree with their philosophical approach, and I agree with things that they have done over the past 3.5 years that has grown our economy, that has strengthened the employment of millions, that has created an opportunity for corporations to hire millions of Black folks across this country, putting them in high middle class jobs of $89, $90, $100, $120,000 a year. Cut in half the number of children, Black children, living in poverty in this country. Quadrupled the number of businesses that have gotten SBA loans, and certainly has unbundled the federal contracts of $660 billion that this country spends on private contracts, where Black businesses have been able to get almost $70 billion in contract as a result that this administration unbundled the contracts that the previous administration put into place. Yes, I support that kind of administration. I support that kind of those kinds of policies. But first and foremost, we will not be able to have this kind of conversation if we elect the wrong people to go to the White House. If we allow for those people to be elected, which is why we can't do that. So what gives me tremendous hope is the fact that we have Democrats, Republicans, independents, all saying together that we must save democracy. We can debate on the other side, but right now we must stand together for America. That's what we must do first and foremost. And I am telling you, those are the Republicans that I remember. The Jack Kemp type of Republican, the Ronald Reagan type of Republican, meaning that they all believed in the fundamental of our democracy. Ronald Reagan said that it is time to choose what is right. You cannot allow for yourself to be so absorbed with your frustration that you completely miss the fullness of what is before us. I understand that there were some analyses that the Urban League talked about, that black men under the age of 50 were suggesting that they would be voting for Donald Trump, about 20%, 25%. Well, that number is touted every 2 to 4 years. That number is touted, but they've never gotten more than 12% of votes from black men in any election. But the point is, however, I believe that you must, and we must do a better job at educating people on what this administration has done. That they have powered historic economic recovery that created more than 3.5 million jobs for black workers, achieved the lowest unemployment rate on record since it was being recorded, the lowest gap between black and white unemployment of any time in modern history, helped black working families build wealth. Black wealth is up by 60% relative to before the pandemic, the largest increase on record, cut in half, as I said before, the number of children living in poverty in 2021 through the American Rescue Plan's child tax credit expansion, which the vice president is proposing to make permanent, began reversing 50 years of offshoring manufacturing jobs overseas to where we now have more than 46,000 projects going on in this country, bringing back more than 1 million thus far manufacturing jobs that are paying upwards starting $90,000 to $120,000 a year. And on and on and on. So my point is that you have to get the facts. You have to get the information, the real information. And you say, well, how does that benefit me? And what does that mean to my life? And that is a fair question. It's a very good question. What it represents is that the policies that this administration have passed through the American Rescue Plan, the infrastructure bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Chips and Science Act, CARES Act 2, all 5 historical pieces of legislation historically is impacting opportunity for black families across the United States of America more than any other presidency on record, including Bill Clinton, including Barack Obama's. Many of these policies, many of these opportunities will vanish and go away if, in fact, you do go into those booths across this country and re-elect Donald Parson. You can forget about any of these policies that are impacting in a positive way Black lives. Now, if you think that that is just hyperbole, it is not. Because I challenge you right now to go, those of you who are considering going to the other side because somebody has passed on some disinformation and some misinformation that you have just bought hook, line, and sinker through your understandable frustration. But I do not want you to be ignorant of the facts. That's why we do this program every week. Because if we can just reach one of you, two of you, 500, who knows, to provide you with factual information that you can verify, that you could substantiate, you will make the informed decision. Because when you know better, you have better information, you make better decisions. So all I want to do is to give you the information and to point you to where you can go and verify the information. Now, there are those of you who trust the information that comes from me. I have to work very hard into making sure that the information that I put forth is accurate information, factual information that you can stand on. And you can stand on it because you can go and verify whatever it is that I am saying to you. Because I pride myself on making sure that I'm prepared with the accurate, factual data in order for me to have this platform, to have this outlet, and to share it to you so that you will be better informed. And then you can also go and you can verify it. You can verify the information that I am putting forth, that I give to you. Now, speaking of verifying information, it is important that you get it right. Just because you see something on TikTok, you see something on YouTube that may appear and have the appearance of an authentic news story. And remember, I said the appearance of what could seemingly be an authentic occurrence happening. Well, the way this is journalism 101. When someone shares what they have disguised as information, factual information, that they are suggesting that it is a news story or that has been reported, that a certain occurrence took place, that a certain thing happened. If you only see that certain thing on TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or on the internet, for that matter, by one unknown source, that cannot be corroborated by the mainstream media of CBS or NBC or ABC or WGN or Fox 32 or WCIU. If it is not verified, if you can't find that story between all of those other mainstream media, even on the national, ABC, CBS, NBC, if you cannot find it, it did not happen. The way that you saw it on TikTok or a YouTube short or Instagram, it did not happen. And you should never repeat something that you see on the internet as being factual truth unless you have verified it through 3 of the mainstream medias. If there is only one source, that is putting it out, it did not happen. It did not happen. And you should never, if you want to be a person of credibility, you should never put out information that you cannot corroborate, that you cannot factually support. You can ask questions, and you should ask questions. I have many questions about certain things that take place. Many questions. And you ask questions in order for you to be informed, to get the information so that you can make the right decision, or to understand it, or to get involved, or to try and reverse it if it needs to be reversed, or to support it if it needs to be supported. That's what learning this information is all about. That's what this entire process is about. You can talk and you can shout from the rafters about any issue that you think that is important. But if you're not willing to organize, if you are not willing to show up, if you are not willing to cooperate, that issue may not get dealt with. It may not, only because we didn't show up, only because we didn't participate. We allow ourselves to repeat unfounded rhetoric just because we heard somebody else say it. And we use things like, well, the statistics say. What statistics? How did you verify those statistics? Or did you even verify those statistics? By what measure? Did you corroborate whatever those statistics that you are uttering? We have a real responsibility to make sure that we get information and we get that information correct, and that it is constructed correctly and conveyed accurately. Ask questions to find out if that is in fact the case. And then when you ask the questions, make sure that you go and you check the information out. Find out, where did they get this from? Where did you get this from? Where did you get what you have conveyed to us? Where can I go check that information out? Where can I go and verify what it is that you've said to me? We have a whole bunch of disinformation that is being spewed. What side of the issue do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the I heard and they said side, which I heard and they said are the two biggest lies ever told? Be careful of anybody who starts out by telling you, I heard and they said. Well, you know, they said. Who is the they? And I heard, where did you hear it from? They said and I heard are two of the biggest lies ever told. And I'm saying to you now, be very careful of the they said and the I heards. One of the areas that I pride myself on is making sure that I'm bringing you whatever information that I'm bringing you is information that has been thoroughly vetted and corroborated, because it is my responsibility that if you tune in to this program and you are listening to me provide you with information, that you take that information and you run away with it. It is my responsibility to make sure that you are taking information that is accurate information, that you can convey, you can corroborate, and others can use. That's what my job is. That's what my reasonable responsibility is. It's not to come up with titillating talking points just to have an audience, just for you to participate in, just for it to be must-see TV. I don't want it to be must-see TV because it's entertaining. Because everything that is being in some cases that's entertaining is quite destructive. Is quite destructive. So you and I have a real responsibility to get the facts so that we can share that within our trusted circles. Whether you have a trusted circle of 2, 3, 4, 5, 500, whatever it is, that you share that information with people who trust you. So you want to make sure that you're sharing information that is verifiable with evidence. They're called facts. They're called facts. And so my job is to make sure that I'm providing you with facts and whatever entertainment that comes out, that the facts come out. All right, 951-221-8221. If you'd like to call in, 951-221-8221. We certainly would love to hear from you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to open up the lines, and you can call in to the program. So I'm going to open up right here. Yep. Let's okay, here we we go. Let's try it again. There we go. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong one. And there we are. Okay, 951-221-8221. There we go. I'm still getting used to this. I don't know why I keep doing that. I'll try this again. There we go. All right. So 951-221-8221. So now, what I do want to talk about is I want to give you some information on the voter engagement. How to make sure, because early voting is going to be starting in just about 10, 12 days in some states. If you're going to be voting absentee. So I want to make sure that we give you the information of what you need to do. Now, there are 4 ways that you can vote. One is absentee voting. Absentee voting is for those who cannot physically be present at the polls on election day due to travel, illness, or you're in the military, or you're in space. And there are some people in space, and they're providing a way for those people in space to actually vote. So you need to, 1, request your absentee ballot, and once your absentee ballot is approved, you'll receive it by mail. Now, each state may have its own requirements for qualifying. You need to make sure that you find out, depending upon what state you're in, what those qualifications are. Number 2, vote by mail. Several states, many states now offer the vote by mail options, meaning you can request a mail-in ballot without needing to give any reason. Once you receive your mail-in ballot, you can fill it out right at home, and then you can mail it in back to or drop it off at a designated drop box location. Now, be sure to mail in your ballot at least 2 weeks before Election Day. Now, I would say to you, once you get your mail-in ballot, fill it out. Fill it out. Then don't go mail it right away. Complete your mail-in ballot. Don't seal it. Put it in a very safe place, in a secure place. Then come back to it a day or 2 later and go over it to make sure that you completed everything on your mail-in ballot that you need to complete. Then seal and mail it. Never do it at the same time, because 1, you will reduce by 50% or greater them being able to reject your mail-in ballot. So complete your mail-in ballot, and I would always say complete your mail-in ballot in the morning time as opposed to at nighttime after you've been gone a long day. Do it in the morning time, right after you get up, you have breakfast, you're fresh, your memory and your mind is free from all the clutter that you have to deal with during the course of the day. Then put it away, then come back to it and review it the next day or 2. Then make a copy of it. Make a copy of it, mail it, take a picture of it, take a picture of you putting it in the box. Document, 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 because there is so much voter suppression that is going on. that is going on. Now, so vote by mail. 3, early voting. Early voting allows you to cast your vote in person before Election Day. It is typically offered for a set period of time, making it easier to find a convenient time to vote. Early voting helps to reduce lines and crowds on Election Day and gives you more flexibility. Now, I know that there are people who say, I just like to go through the tradition and I like to vote on Election Day. Understood. But if that is the case, make sure that there is nothing within your schedule for work or anything else that will prevent you from being able to cast your vote. I like to early vote. And the reason I like to early vote, we are here in Chicago. We're here in Chicago, and in Chicago we have 50 wards, and in each ward there is an early voting location in all 50 wards. And of course, early voting downtown at the super location, the super site, starts where you can go downtown and vote. But early voting starts a little bit later in each ward. And you can go to any early voting site, anyone, wherever you are, before the election date. Because on election date, you have to go where your precinct is, wherever that may be, where you live, in whatever precinct that you are in, you have to go to that polling place to cast your vote on election day. But early voting, you can vote anywhere. You can go to any of the sites, and all you have to do is go there and you complete your application, you sign in, and they give you a booth. You go in and you cast your ballots. You take your time, cast your ballot, and you're done. I like to go and early vote. I really like to take my wife and we go, we vote together, and we early vote. So now, I know that there's somebody out there who is saying, do you tell your wife who to vote for? And the answer is no. The answer is no. My wife sometimes will ask me about certain candidates, but I never interfere with my wife's decision on who she is going to vote for. Now, for the most part, we support the same people. That's why we're married, because you tend to pick people who you are common with, right? So I'm very fortunate that way, that I have a phenomenal, fantastic wife. And so anyway, so we like to go and we early vote together. And then I like to early vote so that if there is something that is unusual, that I can come back on a program and I can share it with you. I can share you what the challenges may be or some difference. Now, here in Chicago, we are going to be voting for the very first time in 10 districts. We're going to be voting for 10 seats for the Chicago Public Schools. And we need to know, one, what the districts are. You need to know what district you're in, and you need to know what precinct, because the districts go across multiple wards and they split precincts. So in our weekly 10 by 10 to win meeting, we'll be talking about and providing people with that information. So if you are not sure and you want to get information, come on the 10 by 10 to win meeting. And how do you do that? You text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385. That's 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385, and you can come into our 10 by 10 to win meeting. There's no fee or anything like that. You can come and be a part of it, and we're going to share that information. And over the next several weeks, we're going to invite people who are running for those particular seats to get an understanding of what their philosophy is, what their approach is. And then we will decide as a block who it is that we will be supporting in each of the districts, because we don't all live in the same districts. Now, I, as the leader, I, as the executive director, from this point forward, now everybody knows who I'm supporting for president and vice president. But I will not be announcing anybody that I would be supporting if we have not, as a block, if we have not heard from them, we have not had the opportunity to vet them as a block. Obviously, we have to vote, and everybody individually will vote, but as a block. So, but I will not make public statements about who it is that I will be supporting, because it will be construed as though 10 by 10 to win will be supporting certain candidates. And I have to make sure I protect the integrity of 10 by 10 to win. So I will not. So if you are a candidate, you're running for a local public office, and you would like to earn the support or the opportunity to present to 10 by 10, because I don't know. Well, I know of a couple of the candidates, but I don't know what their philosophy is towards Chicago Public Schools or about Chicago Public Schools. We don't know any of that. So this is my point to those who are running for these offices. In my moving around and in some of these meetings that I will be at, in forums and seeing you at, tend to ask for my support. I will not offer my support for someone who we have not, and certainly I have not had the opportunity to sit and ask questions, to have a conversation with, to understand what your direction is or your approach as it relates to the Chicago Public Schools. Your independence, great, but that's not the sum total of what that will mean. What it will mean is I want to understand, and then we want to understand, and then we want to have the opportunity as a committee to vote on who it is that we're going to endorse or support in those districts. And then we will put that information out. But we're not going to do that if we don't hear from the candidates. And like I said, two of the candidates, I know one of them I could not support because they have, in my view, compromised their political integrity. And so therefore, I have no idea that we can trust what they tell us. And I know them. I like them, but they've made some political decisions. Whatever the calculations are, they made, but they are certainly antithetical to the vast majority of our community. The other, I have not had a chance to talk with at length to get an understanding of that, their philosophy as it relates to the Chicago Public Schools and what their platform is going to be. And so that's very important and it's very critical. And I hope that you do the same thing. I hope that you do the same thing. I hope that you are able to find out who the candidates are in your ward, your district, your precinct. So there are 10 districts, and some districts cross multiple wards. In precincts within a ward, could be in a different district. You could be on one district on one side of the street and somebody can be on another district on the other side of the street in the same ward. So it's important to find out. Then find out who the candidates are that you are going to be voting for. And those candidates should be willing to have a conversation with you so that you can ask questions about what their philosophy is about public education. Go to forums, find out where the forums are. I'm going to find out where some forums are going to be taking place. And if I find out of some forums that will be taking place before the end of tonight's program, I will share that information. All right. 951-221-8221, 951-221-8221 is the number. I welcome your calls and certainly would like to hear from you. But let me go through the last way for you to vote. So we did absentee voting, we did vote by mail, we did early voting, and voting in person. In-person voting, which allows you to see your ballot and vote directly at the polls on election day. November 5th is election day. November the 5th is election day. But be sure to check your polling location and the hours ahead of time. I would suggest that you find out what your polling place is and the voting hours, that you find out by checking with the Board of Elections. You can check with the Board of Elections. You can check with your aldermanic office. You can go online, and you can certainly go to the Chicago Board of Elections, and you can get that information. If you're not able to get it there, you can certainly get the information depending upon where you are from the Board of Elections. All right, so no matter which method you choose, it's important to you to make a plan to vote early or on time. All right, visit vote411.org. Vote411.org to find out your key dates, deadlines for your state, and learn what's on your ballot. You can find that out. You can get an early ballot to find out what's on the ballot. And if you're not sure about something, you can ask questions. Now, I suggest that you get your ballots because there are sometimes that there may be referendums on ballots that you didn't even know was going to be on the ballot. But now you can get an early ballot. You can read through that ballot to try to understand what it is. And if there's something on the ballot you don't understand, you can ask questions and you can get some more details about it so that you are making an informed vote about any particular candidate or um, issue for that matter. All right. So those are the 4 ways that you can vote. All right. Um, so make sure that you check your voter registration. You can go to vote411 .org, vote411.org, or you can. There's a couple of different sites. I want to give you the other site as well, iwillvote.com, which you can go there, and whatever state you're in, whatever city you're in, you'll be able to check all of that important, critical information. Now, kind of want to go back to this thing's about between the Democrats and Republicans, right? I think, let me see, Denarad Gibson. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Denarad Gibson says, my black job is to vote for Kamala Harris. That's what my black job is as well. I agree with you. I have on my Kamala Harris shirt. Can you see it there? Yeah, my Kamala Harris shirt that I had. I've got some more shirts, some other tees that I'm going to be coming out with. And so what we're doing is that we're going to be selling the tees. And what happened is that I had these tees made up, and I went out to the Bud Billiken parade, and somebody said that they wanted the tees, so I had to get some more made up, and I sold the tees. And so what I'm doing is I'm going to open my Shopify store. It's going to be called the Kamala store, and you'll be able to buy a Kamala t-shirt there, and we're going to donate $5 of every sale. We're going to donate that to the campaign. So we're hoping that we will be able to do that. So part of the funds we're raising for the campaign, part of the funds we're going to use for building the independent black voting bloc and keeping the infrastructure going there. So it's not about making money for me. That's not remotely what my interest is there. Is that this is a way that we can all participate in raising funds for the campaign. So if you want to help raise funds for the campaign, purchase one of the t-shirts. The t-shirts will be $30. Will be the t-shirts, and we're going to have this shirt. We're going to have another shirt. It's going to have Kamala across the front, and so they're going to be really nice tees that we can show off, those of us who are in support of this campaign. All right, so if you want to call in, 951-221-8221, 951-221-8221 is our guest call-in number. So let me just make sure that we okay. Yeah, there we go. All right, 951-221-8221 is our number. Love to hear from you. All right, so phone lines are open right now. All right, so again, so going back to this. Oh, by the way, Florida A&M just got their new vice president and athletic director as a woman. That just came across my my reels, so we'll find out the information. I just saw that pop up across my newsreel. So congratulations there, Florida A&M. Let's see. Somebody is FAMU. That's my sister's alma mater, by the way. New vice president, new VP, and athletic director. Angela Suggs, the president and chief executive officer of the Florida Sports Foundation, will be presented this week to the trustees at the Florida A&M University to be the school's new vice president and athletics director, as reported by the Florida A&M fan site Rattler Nation. Angela Suggs is who will be there. My sister graduated from Florida A&M. My husband graduated from Florida A&M, and all of their children graduated from Florida A&M. My niece, two nephews, and then one of my great nieces now going to Syracuse. So she's out in Syracuse, Brielle. But what I'm really excited about, I'm really excited about what I am seeing with Democrats and Republicans working to make sure that we protect democracy, that we protect our democratic norms. Again, I think it is important. I think it is important that I think it's important that what we see is that we're willing and that we understand that our democracy is the foundation. It's the fundamental. In order for us to get to any place, to deal with any issue, we have to have the foundation. You can't build a house without having the foundation in place. You have to have the foundation. You can tear the house down and build a new house, but you can't build a house or any house without a foundation. And democracy is the foundation. The ability to vote, the ability to vote for people to represent the interests of the people from around the country, so that there could be debate, discourse, ideas, decisions, resolutions, agreements, moving forward. You can't have any of that if you don't have the foundation of a democracy. And 17 Republicans came forth and said that they are going to be supporting the Harris-Walz ticket, not because they're supporting their philosophy, their ideology. They all realize that we have a foundation of our democratic norms, our democratic process that we have to protect. Former President George Bush's general or attorney general is supporting the Harris-Walz ticket. Liz Cheney, former Vice President Dick Cheney, both have endorsed and are voting for the Kamala Walz-Harris ticket. 200 other Republicans have endorsed the Harris-Walz ticket. Now, I'm glad as a Democrat that they're doing that. I'm glad as a Democrat that they're doing that. And I know it is not lost on me or lost on anybody, and it shouldn't be lost, but it certainly should not be the distraction of doing the work that we need to do to make sure that we do all that we can to help achieve protecting our democracy by making sure that the Trump-Vance ticket does not become the president and vice president of the United States. You and I have to make sure of that. We have to make certain of that. Now, I know that there's some men, some black men, who are saying that they are voting for him. Especially, there are some are who think that Donald Trump was the reason for the passing of the First Step program. He signed it into law, but then the next year they starved it in the budget. What the First Step Act is to release those who have been incarcerated on low-level, nonviolent crimes or nonviolent convictions. The First Step program, one, is to release people who have been incarcerated on these low-level offenses. And then there was supposed to be support to help reduce the recidivism. And what happened was the administration starved it over the next several years. It's supposed to be getting $75 million a year. It only got 14 million. So again, this is where you need to be able to get all of the accurate information so that you're making informed decisions, not emotional decisions, informed decision. I get that people are frustrated because of they don't see or hear about themselves. And I think that in many respects, that is a mistake that is made by people from the Democratic Party, that we're not speaking directly to those issues. I believe that there is so much discussion, there are so many news stories that talk about crime in certain communities, in particular Black communities, in certain Black communities, whether it be here in Chicago or Miami, in the Liberty City area, or in Philadelphia, or in Detroit. You know, these are kind of the flag cities that politicians like to point to when they're trying to advance their political ambitions. And they think that it wins the attention of voters. So they like to talk about these areas that are challenged. I talk about it. I talk about Chicago. In Chicago, there's not a single poor white community in Chicago. Not one. Not anymore. As well, there shouldn't be any poor white communities. There shouldn't be any poor Black communities either. There shouldn't be any poor Black communities today. There should not be, but there are. We should not have this over-proliferation, this proliferation, this saturation of guns in our communities when you're not even allowed to buy a gun in the city of Chicago. We don't have any gun shops. We don't have any gun dealers. We don't have gun manufacturers in Chicago. But yet, certain communities, we have this overproliferation of illegal guns that are still flowing into Chicago. How is that? Why is that? Why is there not a full-fledged FBI investigation? Why is that? Of how these guns are getting into Chicago, into our communities. Secondly, or equally, I should say, not secondly, but equally. And I know that it's starting to unfold and it's starting to happen, but there needs to be an acute focus on attracting those companies, those industries to come into our communities like they used to be, to bring their businesses, since we now have the Chips and Science Act, the infrastructure bill that is attracting manufacturers and providing them with the resources to bring their businesses and invest in communities and hire from these communities, in increasing middle class jobs of people who were living in poverty or people who are at risk, giving opportunities to earn 90, 80, 110, $120,000 a year in these manufacturer jobs, training them. We have all this money that's coming from these bills. We, as a constituency, we've got to make sure that we just work together so that if it's me or somebody else speaking on behalf of the whole, that we have a big, huge constituency behind that voice that gives strength to that demand, and the people who are on the other side as our representatives cannot ignore, and they have to respond positively. If they don't respond positively, we have the power to say, you didn't produce, and therefore we have to find somebody else to produce. But guess what will happen if we build this independent block of union of black voters? The very people who were not performing and who were not acutely focused will become acutely focused. Why will they become acutely focused? Because they now can count that we have 100, 200,000 people in together that just came together, that is a part of this independent block of black voters, who says that we'll give you an opportunity to perform, but if you do not perform, if you cannot deliver these demands, and they're not unreasonable demands. It's not unreasonable for us to think that the people who represent us can attract businesses to come and set up in our communities and hire for people in our communities. It's not unreasonable for us to expect for the people who represent us to go to our state and federal agencies and say that we must have more resources to investigate these negatives that are impacting our communities in a negative way. That's not unreasonable. It's not unreasonable for us to demand and expect for our representative to make sure that our learning institutions, our public learning institutions, our stellar learning institutions for our children in every one of the communities where we live. That's not unreasonable. But in order for us to make that kind of demand, we have got to do the very basic fundamental is agree to come together. Don't get all caught up in the weeds of making sure that, well, what is going to be the agenda? No, the agenda is one, coming together, deciding to come together. We can get focused and we can determine on what the agenda items are. We can make those determinations of what those items are. But you can do none of that unless you are willing to put the force together to have the power to approach the people who are in our elective offices to be able to make the demand. You cannot make those demands if you don't have the power to force them to deliver. And the way to force them to deliver is to put together a huge number of people that are a voting union that they see 100,000 or 200,000 of black people in an independent voting bloc. That's enormous power and enormous influence on any issue that we think that is important. That is the one thing we've never done in terms of institutionalizing it. When we do that, we will completely change the trajectory of how our communities are represented by the very people we have in the very same offices. When we change, we'll be able to change that dynamic. All right, listen, we're going to switch. We're going to switch up a little bit. I told you that we're going to have some guests coming on, and I see one of them in the waiting room. She is the current president of the Mayor Harold Washington Legacy Committee. She's not no longer my new friend, but my friend Lois Dean Walker, who I met through Josie Childs some years ago when I was on WBON, and I had a week of remembering Harold Washington, and we were able to bring in people who were in his administration that have worked with him in his administration all week long. I guess Lois Dean Walker was one of those persons, and she is here joining us now. And joining me now on the program, Lois Dean Walker. Lois Dean, how you doing?
Hey there, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
And the last time I saw you was at the memorial service for Josie.
Yes, yes. And I spoke about that. Has that been a year or has it been 2 years?
A year, a little over a year. It
A
was
little over a year.
February, March of 2023.
Yeah. Okay. And I just found out that you are now the president of the Mayor Washington Legacy Committee.
Yes, I am.
All right. Okay.
I'm proud to be.
All right. Yes, absolutely. All right. So, well, before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about this election. I want to get your thoughts on how you feel about things, and since the dramatic switch a little over a month ago now,
Yeah.
what you think about the election?
Well, a little over a month ago, I was like, "Oh, this is not going to happen. We're in a bad place, and it's just not going to happen." And by the end of the night of the day that it had been announced that she was going to be the candidate, I had to sit up. I had to get out the bed and get. I had went to bed with smelling salts, but I had to get out the bed. But
Uh-huh.
because and after being on that call with the Win Black Women that night, and the 44,000 women came on, I woke up with a new attitude, and so this whole crusade, because that's what it is reminding me of the Harold Washington crusade. It was a movement, and we got no TV, no media or anything until after we had the first rally, and then everybody jumped on board, and we took it. But it started with the registrations of those 200,000 people that we registered in that time, and that's what it's going to take in this time. We can't sit back and say that a debate, she won the debate, or this is happening, that's going to win the election, because that's not going to win the election. The election will be won by those people who are registered and standing in line to vote. And we don't even have to stand in line today. But that's what I'm looking at now. We're on a crusade here, everywhere, and I'm in Arizona, the red state.
Yes. So give us a little taste of how it is out there. What's your involvement out there, and what's the feeling out there?
Well, first of all, I'm retired from politics.
Okay.
That's number one.
Okay.
And so I can't do what I did in Chicago out here because it's just a whole different. It's just a whole different thing. But
Hmm.
um, the community is very diverse and adamant that this state is going to be blue. The people that I deal with, and not
Hmm.
saying that there's not a whole that probably 70% were like we're going to be red and we're going to stay red, but people are coming around because we have a lot of independents, and then we have Democrats, and we have and they call themselves the white dudes for Kamala, and we got the this for Kamala and that for Kamala. So they're like, we turning this around, and we
Yeah.
we have at stake out here to us a Senate seat that's at stake, and so people got to remember that we got to go down the ballot. So that's what they're working on out here. It's going down the ballot.
All right. Listen, our other guest, Deborah Crable, has joined us, the president and CEO of MSD Global. I'm going to bring her into the studio. Deborah, how are you?
Is
Deborah?
she, is she there?
She was there. Um, she was there. Okay, I'm gonna bring her back. I think she stepped
And I'm
away. She
okay because
stepped
I'm
away.
on my phone because I
Okay.
couldn't do it right on my computer.
Okay. All right. Yeah. She when she comes back, then we'll bring her into the studio. Um, I was talking earlier in the program. One of the things that's encouraging me is that even though we may differ on political philosophy, meaning those who are Republicans that are voting for Kamala and Walls, and Democrats, we may never agree on political ideology or philosophy, but we fundamentally believe that we have to protect the fundamental of our democracy so that we can have a basis of which to be able to have discourse. It
You're
looks like
absolutely correct.
Deborah is back, so I'm going to bring her into the studio. Okay, we're going to try it now. Deborah.
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
So I figured out the camera problem, but I'm set up outside where it's dark.
Yeah, it's very dark. It's very dark, and we see some kind of silhouette or something. We
Yeah,
see
yeah. So
we see something. You need a light or something. So, but
yeah,
okay, we're
I went that's why I went to get the light. So I can
okay.
plug it in.
All right. Well, we're
And
going to work with it as it is.
okay, no
We're going to
worries.
work with it. All right. Okay. All right. So we're going to come to that. But as I was saying, Lois, is that what's encouraging me is this, is that I'm a registered Democrat. I've been a registered Democrat since I was 18 years old. I've never missed an election since I was 18 years old of voting. And I've seen 12 Democratic National Conventions since I can remember. The first one I saw was in 1976. And the one that I just witnessed was by far the best Democratic National Convention that I have ever seen executed. It was almost flawless.
Flawless.
And one of the things that gives me hope about our democratic process is that it was a campaign, it was a convention of everybody, Democrats,
Yes.
Republicans, independents,
Yes.
um, every political persuasion, because it was people who believe that we have to protect our democracy before we even talk about political ideology.
Mm.
Yes.
So that's what has happened in the last 4 to 5 weeks
Yes.
since the change. Now, I will tell you that I was frustrated with the Democratic Party at the way that the Democratic Party was treating Joe Biden relative to the other person on the other side.
Yes.
That, you have a guy who is an old guy. Okay, he's an old guy. I'm not looking for a president who's going to run laps around a track.
Right.
I want a president who can govern and get things done to advance the country and to advance ideas that's going to move our people forward. That's
Yes.
what we're looking for. So, but that aside, is that people were just sort of driving the bus over Joe Biden. But the other side was wrapping their arms around a convicted criminal, a known rapist, and everything else that you could, twice impeached and indicted on multiple other cases. But we were eating our own. I was upset with that. I was really upset about that. And then when he came out on Sunday and made that decision, I was still very disappointed about it. But I quickly made a shift. And then I saw this energy, right? This energy that seemed like it just took over the country.
Yes.
It completely took over the country. And at first I was like, well, how long is this going to be? So every day it just got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and it continues. And then to see Republicans saying that they're going to come and they're going to support this ticket. Independents going to support this. White dudes going to support this ticket. Then 44,000 black women raised $1.7 million in 3 hours. And then I was on a call with 52,000 black men, and we raised $1.3 million. That kind of energy. And I said, this is America. This is the America that we are working towards. This is the kind of America that we want, not the one that they're promoting on the other side.
Yes.
So I went through this whole sort of transition that I had to go through this transition, but I was upset with the Democratic Party before. Because I said if Joe Biden came in in a wheelchair, I would be going to the polls to vote for him.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I felt the same way. I feel the same way right now.
Yeah.
And people laugh at me. I call him Uncle Joe and Auntie K. And so now we got to get Auntie K through. But I was as upset as you, Mark. And my husband and I both, we just kept saying the same thing. This is who we got. This is what we got to support. This man is about democracy. And so, he did what he did to move us forward. And so now
not only did he do what he did was more transformational that impacts black communities than any other presidency in modern history ever.
Absolutely.
Ever. So to be able to get done in the time that he was, because when Joe first announced, I was not high on Joe Biden. When he first announced that he was running, I was not high on him at all. But there has not been a more consequential presidency for black people in our lifetime than what this administration has been able to get done. And secondly, there hasn't been a vice president that has been more involved and integral in making those policies happen. She had to vote 36 times to break a tie to make sure that these policies go forward. That's never happened in the history of the country.
And so that is what I was angry with the Democratic Party for. Not making sure that every single person knows all of this, what has been happening and what is relevant to us and what is that has never been done before. And so the Republicans keep talking over what hasn't happened. We know what happened, but only us, few, know what has happened. So I just think that the American people need to know. And so that Democratic convention, like you said, we've been through probably as many as you. The last one that I actually actively participated in was 96 in Chicago. It showed the world what he had done and what she had done. And it showed the world what everybody, like you said, America, because everybody was represented at that particular, this particular convention, showed the world what we can do together as one.
Absolutely.
And I also think that what resonated with me is the fact that it went beyond the personality and moved to the party. So this is the party that is truly about the people, that
Yes.
it is not personality driven. It is not driven by one charismatic individual, but this is a party with the right agenda that's going to be for the people. So that was one of the things that really resonated with me on this one. Did they handle the transition of power, if you will, as amicably as I would have liked for it to have been done? No, they did not. I thought it was extreme disrespect, but I also think that the deal had already been cut, and that somewhere along the line, Mr. Biden, President Biden, said, "You know what? I'm not hanging up my cleats yet." But the train had already left the station. So there was no about face at that point. And coupled with the truth of the fact is that he was not up to speed with health to be able to sustain the run. So I think that the right decision was made ultimately. I didn't like the way it was handled, but the right decision was made, and he made the right decision, and he will go down in history as being the best president of this era, and certainly the best president that delivered more deliverables for Black and Brown people.
Yes.
Without question. I went to uh, the uh, the Treasury Department, and I
Hmm.
pulled the policies. I pulled policies of
Hmm.
what this administration has been able to get done, and to go through those policies to see of how they have impacted the Black community,
Hmm.
and to be able to go to through those to see just what those policies and how those policies will be transformational to the Black community,
Hmm.
which is why it's absolutely important that we make sure that we elect, uh, as you say, Auntie K, so that these policies can become institutionalized and they cannot be reversed.
Right.
So,
Right.
Because
let me underscore there again, though, because I think there are a lot of people that might have whatever issue they might have with Auntie K, but this is a Democratic platform. This is the platform. These are the policies that will be moving forward that's going to impact our lives for the next 20 years or more. Can
Mm-hmm.
we safely say that?
Yes. Yes.
But if we
yeah,
if we don't make the right choice in that voting booth on November the 5th, all of it stands a chance of being upended. You will hear in the interview that Professor Bob Starks did with Congressman Jackson on KYPVote.us on our website that the 2025 project is already in motion. It's just the what we're dealing with now are just formatics, if you will. But
Yes.
if we don't stop it and stop it now, it's going to roll out, and the ramifications are going to be disastrous.
Mm-hmm. Because
sure,
we.
there's no question about it. You have people who are talking about, well, and then literally calling people stupid for thinking, talking about Project 2025. Look, I played sports for years. I played football, and whenever we went into meetings, our coaches gave us a manual, a playbook
Hmm.
manual.
Hmm.
Nobody writes a manual for you to just say, okay, it's not going to be used. Nobody writes a 922-page manifesto with
Yeah,
150 co-authors of it, 100
right.
of which worked in the Trump administration, that they're
Yes.
not going to utilize it,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
that
And
doesn't happen.
right.
And go
And
ahead.
is out of their mind because if just one page, if just one page of it is used, it is trouble for us and for this
Mhm.
country.
No
And and
question.
and and the real test here is that beyond the personal impact on our community, it is upending our democracy. It dismantles it.
It dismantles it.
And which is what I always said it was Trump's end game. He's a disruptor, he's a destroyer, and he is up just to change everything,
Hmm.
not transform, because all of us can get into the game of transformation. He wants to destroy and create what he wants to create under the auspices of being a dictator.
A
So
dictator
he's setting up that whole platform for him to become a dictator.
for him to become a czar. and
Yes.
people don't, and the people who are running behind him saying that I'm still going to vote for him, they think that it's not going to affect them.
Yeah.
A,
Yeah.
a dictator, a czar, cares nothing about anybody but themselves.
So, but let me ask you this: when we think of the more than 100 authors of that Project 25, you've already identified most of them were in his administration. Um, he's saying that he had nothing to do with it. He's wanting to distance himself from it. What do we know about those people? So, if they are the ones who are standing behind the curtain, what power do they have to truly enact that Project 2025? Have
Well,
you?
well, let me tell you what their level of power is.
Hmm.
The reason why Republicans are standing by Donald Trump is because
Hmm.
Donald Trump is a unprepared, a person who has demonstrated that he really has no interest in governing, and that he allows for them, those people, to um, enforce policy, to write policy, and he signs off on it.
Right.
Hmm.
That's what their level of power is. They direct him. He does not direct them as long as they do and give him the credit for it and allow for him to do what he wants. Donald Trump, when he went to North Korea
Hmm.
and met Kim Jong un, when he came back here after that visit, that completely changed his entire ideology about what he wanted to be as president. This man wanted to come back here and wanted for them to completely change Washington so that they could give him a military parade.
Yes.
Hmm.
He
Yes.
wanted them to rebuild
Yes.
Pennsylvania Avenue so that they could give him a military parade, and
Right.
he has
Yeah.
not stopped whining about that,
Hmm.
saying that he's
Hmm.
president, he should be able to do whatever it is that he wants.
Yeah.
He is That's when he started uttering that. So
Hmm.
their level
Hmm.
of power is because they're able to do Project 2025, and he will sign off on whatever it is that they want to do,
So,
because they're saying to him, we are going to make you the dictator that you want to be.
mhm.
When you're talking about removing 55,000 career civil servant workers and putting in 55,000 political appointees,
Hmm. Hmm.
that is an autocracy.
Yes.
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 That
Yes.
creates an authoritarian
Yes. A czar.
government, if you will.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the level of power that they have.
Hmm.
My other concern is I'm sitting in church on Sunday, and of course we always talk politics. We're one of those churches we check in for service for 45 minutes and fellowship for 90, and the conversation will invariably turn political. They spent, a half hour nonstop talking about the one who shall remain nameless to me, all of his shenanigans. And I had to stop them and I said, listen, for 30 minutes, you've been talking about this man's foolishness and his foolery.
Mhm.
What should we be talking about? I say that they have him there intentionally as a distraction. I don't think they need to have his sign off on everything. They are moving this plan full force, full throttle, with or without him. And he is there to distract, to deflect, and to keep us off guard and off mark. So, which is another reason why I'm really encouraging people to really do the deep dive on your homework and to really see who this man really is. He's not the person to be the commander in chief. He is not the person that we want to have representing us here in the United States, allegedly the custodian of all of our trust, and then to be representing us outside of the country as well. No, he is not the one.
No, he's
He's
not. And
driven. He's driven
well,
by ego.
this is the basic challenge that I ask for people to look at,
Hmm.
is because I believe in being driven on facts and on information so that you can make good informed decisions, not on hyperbole and all of this other
Hmm.
nonsense that people uh, delve into. I ask for people, and I have been asking for this now going on maybe 12 or 13 years,
Hmm.
for people who say that they're going to vote for the Republicans who say that they're going to vote for Trump, provide to me one, not two, one piece of legislation that Republicans have ever proposed and ever passed that has helped the average working family and certainly helped the average Black family in America in the past 50 years. One. Nobody has been able to meet that challenge. Period.
And they won't.
They won't.
Because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, because it doesn't exist. Now, and I say to people, this is not to say that the Democratic Party is some holier than thou party, but it is the party by which we have some basis of being able to work with to get things done to advance our communities forward.
Exactly. And one that is about inclusion and not exclusion.
Well, and then I can go down policies that the Democratic Party and the administration has passed that is helping Black people. Just think of this one, $16.5 billion by this administration in the first 3 years of its presidency is going to historic Black colleges and universities, not minority colleges, historically Black colleges and universities, more than any other president in the history since they started supporting HBCUs back in 1965. $16.5 billion.
And here's what's incumbent upon the community in response to that. Make sure you're sending your children to those HBCUs. The demographics on the Black colleges is rapidly shifting, and pretty soon they are not going to be filled with the majority of the students looking like us. So, we need to preserve those institutions the same as we preserve all the other institutions in our community with our support and with our dollars. So if the government is saying that this is a worthwhile investment, we need to be saying it's a worthwhile investment to us as well.
Absolutely.
And we have to get our children ready early on to have the mindset that this is what they're going to do. When the parents allow the children to say, this is what I'm going to do, then it doesn't get to the HBCU. So we need to instill it in their mindset that this is where they want to go. This is what they want to be a part of, because you are going to go to a place that's going to prepare you to be ready for the future.
Well, HBCUs have certainly provided or certainly produced more Black doctors, more Black dentists and lawyers than any other of the universities.
Any other institution. Because they want us. And so any other institution. And so this is what we're
right. If I had to do it all over again, I'd go to an HBCU. My sister and her husband graduated from Florida A&M. Their children graduated from Florida A&M, and now one of the grands are going to Florida A&M. Florida A&M just announced a Black woman as their vice president and athletic director.
Oh, wonderful!
So, Black girl magic is happening all over the place.
All over the place. And, I'm going to be talking about the Black Girl Magic coming up on KYP Vote, taking a look at the role of women in Harold Washington's campaign. Lois, you might be able to speak to that a little bit. But he was very progressive in that regard in terms of identifying the role of women and the power of women and being able to get the electorate excited and to get people out to the polls to vote. So we're going to take a look at that in an upcoming, podcast edition. But Mark, I got to share with you this. We dealt with the young people this weekend. We did a voter registration splash, and Jamal Cole from my block, my hood, my city, came out with a group of his young people, and we did the litmus test. What we are advancing is for individuals to register online using your preferred device, a cell phone or whatever. And the kids were doing that. Some of them were even pre-registering, because you can pre-register at age 16. But they did it all right there from the cell phone. Then I said, I want you to take your phone, go live on Facebook or whatever platform you desire, and tell all your friends to do what you just did. Now Jamal is taking that same concept and he's sweeping the city with it. So I am encouraging others to do the same. We have got to get people registered to vote in volume, in mass, in order for us to make a significant difference at the polls. If you are already registered, we are encouraging you to go online again, kypvote.us, and you can still scan that QR code to verify that you are still registered. People are being purged from the rolls. So you need to make
right
sure
here in Illinois.
right here in Illinois. So
I'm
places
one
where
of
you've
them.
been voting. You are one of them.
I'm one of
Offer
them.
your testimony. Tell me what
Yes.
happened.
Yeah.
Because people don't
So,
believe it.
right. I went to kypvote.org
Hmm.
to verify my registration.
Yes.
And it popped up inactive.
Whoa.
It popped up inactive. All
Hmm.
right. So that's the second time that this happened to me since I've been in Chicago. So I went down. I wanted to find out what was going on. I went to the Board of Elections today
Yes.
to make sure that my registration was intact. And I asked her. I said, "How does this happen?
Hmm.
How does this happen that?"
Mhm.
I said, I've been at the same address for the last 15 years or so. How does this happen? That I mean, like, she said, well, if we send out your voter registration and it comes back to us, we don't send it out again. It becomes inactive until you come to the do you come down to the Board of Elections, or that you go back online and you register. So, which is a problem because a lot of people don't do it.
They don't.
I
They
was
don't know.
also, yeah, I was also downtown, and I was really excited today because when I went down to register, there were
Hmm.
three 18-year-olds who were registering to vote. Three black
Bravo.
18-year-olds that were
Bravo.
at the Board of Elections. But I think that this is a bigger problem because they do not send out notices. I think we have to address that, and we have to find a way to say that you've got to send notices to people to say your voter registration is inactive,
Is inactive. They should.
right?
And so you just said two problems. There's two problems in what just happened to you. One is when you went down there, you took the time to go because, like you said, the average person doesn't. They don't have time or they forget or whatever. They go down there.
Or they don't know.
They found out that they're not, and they said they don't send out another notice. So today, the way the mail is going, I sent countless things to Chicago to people, and it comes back and tell me they're not at that address. I know they're at that address. So I
Mm.
just sent something to somebody last week, and then I resent it to her. What I do is put it in not another envelope. I take a sheet of paper and I resend it. And she said, I'm taking this to my post office because this was her address. So
Hmm.
you've been in that address 15 years. They say they sent out the card. First of all, why are they sending you a card when you voted in the last election?
Hmm.
Right.
So that's three things there. They
Hmm.
said they sent the card. They don't send another one, and then you already voted in the last election. Why are you even getting the card in the first place?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so they just passed a law here in Arizona that if you didn't vote 2 years, then they're purging you. 2 years? A person might
Hmm.
have been sick or in the hospital, but whatever. Again,
Yeah.
Right.
the mail
Hmm.
might have got messed up. So,
Right.
so that's what we're advocating and pushing here. Before I came on the meeting that I was on, I was over here. I told Mark trying to help turn blue. We were packing envelopes to go to people. That's the first name.
Hmm.
Check with kyvvote.us. Check with what, and because that takes you to any state,
Hmm.
check with wherever it is. I just sent this again to my daughter, my grandkids, and saying, okay, uh, did you check? Because I know two of them have moved
Hmm.
and they live
Hmm.
in Texas.
Yep.
Did
Yeah.
you check?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I sent it to them again. It's real simple to check with
Yep.
that QR code and with that link.
That's it.
All right, ladies, listen, we are coming up against the clock. Unfortunately, we're running out of time here. But Loisine, you're going to have to come back because I want to talk about the Mayor Harold Washington Legacy Committee and how that correlates with where we are now. And of
Yeah.
course,
Hmm.
Deborah, you have to come back as well so that we can continue this conversation. This is a very important time for us. These are two people who I highly respect, Deborah Crable, who I just learned that it's Deborah. I thought I was going crazy when I read Deborah. And then she gave me
Devorah.
an education. Deborah. All right.
Just like
So Deborah Crable and Louis Dean Walker, both of you, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate you coming on and sharing your time and this great information. Make sure you all go to KYP vote
Vote.
dot us
right.
to check
Us.
your
Dot us.
registration.
Mhm.
All right.
All right.
The other
I'm
thing
so
we're going to be
glad
doing.
you did. I'm so
Yeah,
glad you did.
absolutely.
Glad to be of
Absolutely.
service.
All right.
Yes.
All right. That's going to do it for this week's edition on the People Show on intellectualradio.com, on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. Thank you all very much. Good night.
Thank you. Peace.
I thought I was gone.